Good morning. The resounding theme of the morning that I've heard from, I would say just about every one of you that I've said hi to, and this isn't a bad thing, actually a good thing, which we'll get to in about 34 minutes. A lot of you have had a bad week. Very, very tough week. And seems like the theme in this body this week, and grace of God. The grace of God and the mercy of God is active in your life right now. That's where we want to end up today. Father God, I lift up this body to you. They mean more to me than they may know, and mean even more to you. Dwelling in love, Father, is a hard thing to do given the two bodies, the two natures we have. The old nature, the new nature. The old nature likes to pipe up and say we don't deserve. The new nature penetrates through the rubble of the flesh to let us know your steadfast love is never ceasing. May we be rooted and grounded in that this morning, Father. How much does God love His Son? That's the question I want to start with today. Maybe a question you never really asked yourself, because you don't really need to ask yourself that question. How much does God the Father love His Son, Jesus Christ? There's really, the answer, once you begin to define the answer, you begin to limit His love. Once you begin to put a measure on the love the Father has for His Son, you begin to shrink it down, trying to define it in a finite mind. But I want to look at it just for a minute, because it's a question I've never really asked myself until this week. How much does the Father love His Son? And if you get to the cross, and you look at what conspired on that cross, those moments right before and at the Son's death, I think you get a glimpse into the heart of the Father by the darkness that overcame the earth, rocks splitting open, tombs spitting out the dead. The divine family was broken and brokenhearted. As the last words, one of the last words of the Son was crying out to his daddy, to his Father. Why? Why? I don't want to just theorize on it. I want to look at some scriptures real quick. We're going to turn to John 15. But before we do, let me highlight some passages that give us a glimpse into the depths of the Father's love for His Son. Matthew 11:27. I'm going to rely on you, Nancy. All things have been handed over to me by my Father. Okay, so there's a lot of trust in the Father to His Son to give Him all things. Matthew 28. All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. That's incredible that all authority has been given to the Son. John 3:35. The Father loves the Son and has given all things into His hand. So we got Matthew who has said it, John who has also indicated it, John 5:20. For the Father loves the Son and shows Him all that He Himself is doing. So the love of the Father is expressed also through revealing to the Son His perfect plan and will. There's nothing that was hidden from the Son's sight. In 2 Peter 1:17, maybe the most visible sign, as Peter alludes to, was this the transfiguration or the baptism of Jesus? But either way, we saw the dad crush come out from heaven. This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. That's my boy. And I am so darn proud of him. And He wasn't afraid to tell it to the whole world. How much does the Father love His Son? So, John 15, we're going to read verses 9 through verse 12. Actually, go to John 17:26. John 17:26. I made known to them your name, and I will continue to make it known, that the love with which you have loved me may be in them. If you can fathom, attempt to fathom, the depths of the love of the Father for the Son, you're beginning to understand the love He has for you. Because the same measure, the same quantity, I almost don't even want to put these words on it, in which He loved His Son, is the same for you as a child of God. John 15. But the question is, do you believe it? Do you really believe it? No, man, well, Greg, this is kind of, Jesus, He didn't do what I've done in my past. He didn't, well, no, in fact, He bore the entire sins on His shoulders. Do you believe it? John 15, verse 9. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. It was verse 8, sorry. Verse 9, as the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in His love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Given the opening remarks, you can now begin to understand why Jesus says, verse 7, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it'll be done for you. If you truly believe the Father loves you as He loves His Son, then you can understand why Jesus says talk freely. Open up to the Father. But we got this darn old nature that gets in the way a lot. Verse 9, John 15. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. See, you cannot separate your love from God or God's love from you as any different as His love for His Son. His love is expressed and is manifested to you through the act of obedience His Son did and fulfilled on that cross. You could almost wager a logical argument to say He loves you more because He was willing to sacrifice His Son. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. So the Father's love is manifested to you through His Son. And then He says this, abide in my love. He commands us to abide in His love, which begins to open up the door to weaken the phrase right before it, as the Father has loved me, so have I loved you, abide in my love, as if you don't abide in His love, then therefore the love of Jesus is weakened because you are not abiding in it. Abide in my love. So if we don't abide in His love, what does that do for us? What does it do for God? Does He love us less? Last week, kids, I talked about this word abide because I wasn't going to get to it last week. I was going to get to it this week. And on your sheet, there was a question that said, what does the word abide mean? And so I gave you the answer last week. And this is where the Twix bars come in handy. I want to pull this answer out of you because I really want you to get your Twix bar if there's enough left. You took it from the kids. I'm kidding. There's plenty in here. So I have a Twix bar to whatever child in here. It's a fun size. I don't know why I call the littlest ones fun. Fun doesn't last long. If you remember what I said last week, what does abide mean? Now see, okay, hold on. I'm ready for this. Don't worry, you guys. I was ready for the awkward silence. Here's what I want, because I really want one of you to get this Twix bar. Who's willing to just talk with me about this for a moment? And I will help you out. Is there any child in here, kid in here, Lance, you might be backup, that is willing to at least give this a shot? Going? I know there's only 6 of you in here, so the pressure's on. Wasn't expecting to be called out during church. This is awkward. You got it. You got it. Here we go. My softball pitch is a curve. Okay, but hold on. Because I sense a little jealousy. So what did you say? Jasmine, right? Okay. What did you just say? Remain. Stay put. Don't move. Right? Okay, so Jesus says, remain in my love. I mean, I don't think I could have said it better. You must know the Greek or something. Okay, any other child in here know what the word abide means? I'm just going to tell you, she said the right answer. So here's a free Twix bar to any child here who knows what the word abide means. How about this? Because look, man, you just wanted to sit here and color on your sheet. I get that. Right? This has turned awfully bad. Do we have to go back next week, Mom? He's going to talk to us again and make us do his preaching. At the count of 3, all you have to do is say remain. Because I know you know this. Because I know you heard it from Jasmine, and you all will get Twix bars. And get this! You can eat it in front of your parents. Because, they're good people. They don't talk in church. So they're not going to say, don't eat that. Because they know not to talk, but I've just given you permission. So, here we go. On the count of 3, 1, 2. Hold on. Just in case you forgot, the word is remain. Because I want to. On count, when I say 3, just remain comes out. 1, 2, 3. Remain. There it is. All right. Here, watch these. I'm going to get to the older people in a minute. Hold your horses. Call off your dog, sassy. All right, here comes some more. Just if it knocks someone out, I'm just really sorry. And I've got one more coming. Here we go. Mark's coming at your head. Oh, that was actually pretty good. All right, but because I know I love Twix bars, there's kind of a thread, and there's something in you that really, this has a lot to do with the sermon. You got to bear with me. Some of you adults are thinking, I would really like a Twix bar right now. I mean, that doesn't sound half. Right here. See, that doesn't sound half bad. See that? I mean, everybody. Just. Okay, so let's go through this. Sarah's already jumped the gun. Joyce. All right, who else? Helen. I'm sorry, I went too far. They're going to start coming. But you guys are proving something right now in all your... What about this side of the room? Who wants a Twix bar? See? Well, you got to know the answer. Remain. There it is. It's coming back. I don't usually do this, but you guys are proving my point, and you don't even know it. Who else wants a Twix bar? See, and there's some in here that just won't say the answer. Teresa, that one was free. Well, all right, I can't do this forever. If you want it, you're just going to have to come up and get it. Nancy, all right, let me just try this. Duck. No, that's going to turn bad. Could you deliver that to Nancy? I saw broken windows. We've experienced that this week. You ever notice, like, some of you almost felt like you didn't deserve that. Like the younger kids, I don't know, maybe it's just kind of being shy or whatever. You don't really want a Twix bar, but you're eating it just to make me feel good. But, just there's some, I don't really want to talk, but I would like a Twix bar to talk. But the older you get, you start to justify, well, I didn't think of the answer. The answer did not evolve from me, therefore I don't really deserve the Twix bar. Y'all are so happy. I've never seen so many smiles. Fun size. That was right. It's fun. But it seems like the older we get, we almost logically talk ourselves out of things that we deserve, even though a guy would stand up here and say, all you got to do is say what Jasmine said, and you deserve it. And I think we oftentimes approach the love of God in the same manner. I don't deserve it. I didn't do anything. In fact, if I look at my history, if I look at my life, it says quite the opposite. And the more we dwell on what we believe we don't deserve, the harder it is to receive what we deserve. Now, Christ died for you so that you can be one with His Father and one with Him. So you could deserve the love of the Father. But it is hard. It is hard, especially for some of you who've had the week you expressed to me this morning. Do I really deserve it? But Jesus says, don't you dare move from the position of love in which I'm giving you. Stay put. There's nothing in your mind that should talk you out of this. Romans 8, some of you may be thinking of. There's nothing that can separate you from that love. Nothing at all. Not even a mentality of, I don't deserve this. Jesus commands you stay put. You stay put in my love. And that word remain, he says it 3 or 4 times in this section. It's very important. But Ephesians lets us know just how hard it is to stay put. Ephesians 3, verse 14, for this reason I bow my knees before the Father, from whom every family in heaven and on earth is named, that according to the riches of His glory, He may grant you to be strengthened with power through His Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may have strength. That word strength shows up twice, to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth, length, height, and depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled with all the fullness of God. Now to Him who is able to do far more abundantly than all that we ask or think, according to the power at work within us. Paul says he prays that you can have the strength to know the love of Christ, which surpasses your mental ability to understand it. This knowledge has got to come up from within. Your mind is not capable of understanding the love that God has for you because your mind is busy telling you you don't deserve it. And so Paul says, I pray for this reason, that through the faith in your heart, that you can believe in the things that you do not see, that you can know the love of Christ that surpasses your ability to have knowledge of it. That this strength comes from the Spirit within you. And the Spirit comes from God at your new birth. Now to Him who is able to do far more abundantly than all we ask or think. Think. He's able to do far more abundantly than what you think. A lot of times our brains get in the way. We think we know the love of Christ. We think we've boiled it down to this perfect equation. We think we know it. And yet I can tell you, He loves you the same as He loves His Son, and there's some resistance. Because Paul says this takes spiritual power within you to know it. And if you've been born again, the power is within you. And what we're doing is calling it up into the mind. Go back to John 15, verse 10. Jesus then says, if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. That word if, man, that almost destroys some people. There it is, man. If I don't do my end, keep his commandments, then the love of God will be less. You go to John 14:15 though. Jesus says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. He flips the verse around, and this happens multiple times. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. The word keep, we said a few weeks ago, it means to protect and to guard. Well, commandments, that word scares you, but don't let it scare you. Just go to verse 12 of chapter 15. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Therefore, staying put in the love of God guards that word in you and will cause a reaction in you to love one another. You can't separate, and I think this is where we get into problems, as we begin to separate our love for God, God's love for us, and this little love for each other, and these things are kind of all divided, and they're all kind of based upon, ultimately, how well we're loving people. But God is love. He is in your hearts. The new life you live by faith in the Son of God, who is also love, which means you are becoming love. And so to love one another is to live in the new life, which should be remaining in love. Cannot base the love of the Father and the love of his Son on you based upon how well you love each other. You love each other well because you remain in the love of God. John 15:11, Jesus says, these things I have spoken to you that my joy may be in you, that your joy may be full. So verse 10, if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. He says that plus everything else before that for the purpose of his joy being in you and that your joy may be full. So if you don't end up with the conclusion of a joyous life based upon what he said up to this point, but you end up feeling like I need to go and work on loving people in order to be loved, then you've come to the wrong conclusion. You should end at a place of joy. And I'll tell you what, those of you who've had a rough week, if you just say this to yourself over and over again, when you are traveling through that dark period, he loves me just as much. He loves me as he loves his Son. He loves me as he loves his Son. He loves me as he loves his Son. That joy will come back before you know it. But let's be realists. Sometimes it all hits the fan at once. All of it. Where the only thing you have left is the breath in your lungs. I find it interesting when you're eating the rocks at the bottom, that you begin to ask questions about God and about life. Something I've seen in the children of God, those who claim to believe in Jesus, that though they may complain for a season about what God has led them into and through, they'll eventually talk themselves out of it and back to the steadfast love of the Lord. Some of you are sitting on the rocks, the bottom of the pit. Or you may be there shortly after this service. You may be there next week. Maybe you've been down there for a very long time. I'm human. I know it looks hopeless. I know you may have people come into your life and just have hope. You just say these things and do these things and believe this way, and you will pull yourself off the bottom. But I also know that sometimes a person needs to understand that rock bottom is the very place that they begin to open up to this love that they deserve. Lamentations, if you need a good cry, go to the book of Lamentations. Israel, Lamentations possibly written by Jeremiah. Israel is just taken over by Babylon. God's chosen nation, taken into captivity. Not much left of the city. Some poor left behind to take care of the fields. And you've got the book of Lamentations as someone surveys the damage. And they lament. They cry. And they blame God for a lot. Lamentations 3. This may be, you may not have said these words exactly, but these may be your words for your life right now. I am the man. I am the woman. I am the man who has seen affliction. Have you seen it? Are you living in it? Is it beyond your control? I'm the man who has seen affliction under the rod of his wrath. Now the his and the he's here are pointing to the Lord God Almighty. He has driven and brought me into darkness without any light. Surely against me he turns his hand again and again the whole day long. He has made my flesh and my skin waste away. He has broken my bones. He has besieged and enveloped me with bitterness and tribulation. He has made me dwell in darkness like the dead of long ago. He has walled me about so I cannot escape. He has made my chains heavy. Though I call and cry for help, he shuts out my prayer. He has blocked my ways with blocks of stones. He has made my path crooked. He is a bear lying in wait for me, a lion in hiding. He turned aside my steps and tore me to pieces. He has made me desolate. He bent his bow, set me as a target for his arrow. He drove into my kidneys the arrows of his quiver. I've become the laughingstock of all peoples, the object of their taunts all day long. He has filled me with bitterness. He has sated me with wormwood. He has made my teeth grind on gravel. He made me cover in ashes. He made me cower in ashes. My soul is bereft of peace, forgotten what happiness is. So I say, my endurance is perished, so is my hope from the Lord. Remember my affliction and my wanderings, the wormwood and the gall. My soul continually remembers it and is bowed down within me. Maybe you've heard people talk like that. No, it's not God. Don't talk like that. Come on now. You know God. He is a good, good Father. How did Job end? As Job searched for answers, God blamed no one. He said, look to me. And at the end of the day, if you want to blame me, he said to Job, just gird yourself up like a man. I can take it. He didn't have to push it off to Satan. And you know what happened behind the scenes because you got to look. Job, probably for the rest of his life, believed God led him through that. I learned something in counseling. Sometimes it takes years for people to work through their pain. But you got to let them talk. And there'll come a point in their talking, if they're a child of God, that they say, but. It's a conjunction. Kids, your parents will explain to you the difference. There comes a point where the word but shows the light underneath the rubble. He's just got done blaming God for leading him down paths of crookedness, blaming God for aiming his bow and arrow at him and then launching his arrows. He's blaming God for not leading him into light, blaming God for being the laughing stock. But this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. You can't miss the way this is laid out in the English. This I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. His mind has come up with all these thoughts about God to this point, and he calls out of the wellspring of his life his soul. He calls up the soldier of Christ within him to begin to encounter the mind, to begin to encounter the lies. But this I call to mind. What is he calling it from? From what he knows within him. This I call to mind, and this you guys will have to call to mind over and over and over again, because this is where real hope is found. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. That is your spiritual nourishment. When John 6 says, feed on my flesh and drink my blood, he's saying feast on the love of Christ, which was poured out for you on that cross. This is what you call to mind. When the clouds turn dark, this is what you call to mind. When you have nowhere else to go and your mind is spiraling out of control. This I call to mind, and therefore I have hope, says the man. No one intervened. No one preached to him. He did this because of the work of God in him. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. The Lord is good to those who, let me use Jasmine's word, remain. Wait for him. The soul who seeks him. It is good that one should remain, wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. It is good for a man that he bear the yoke in his youth. You young lads in here, if you're going through it now, praise God that you have a life in front of you, that you can live in this blessing. Abide in my love, Jesus commands. Be still. Know that I am God. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Wait upon the Lord. You know, I have for 3 weeks wanted to open up Lamentations 3. And I have been prevented for various reasons in my study from doing so. And I wanted to end this kind of idea of dwelling in love, remaining in love, living in love with this. Without a shadow of a doubt, the incidents in your life that cause you to doubt God's love is one, I don't deserve it because I'm very aware of my shortcoming. Why did Israel get taken off into captivity? I guarantee you they were still upholding the law to some extent. They didn't just abandon it. There were high places. They were worshiping and serving other gods, but there was probably something within that nation that said, look at us. Look at what we've done. Look who we are. God says, never meant to be like that. It's supposed to look at what I did in you. You don't deserve it. The moment you say that, you elevate your thoughts and opinion about yourself over God's view of you. Or second, so your reason you would doubt in His love or not remain is simply because life is hard. Did God do this? Ask your questions. Be open and honest about them. Because I'm sure of this, that the Spirit of God who led you to all truth will lead you to all truth, even in those tough questions. Some of your brothers and sisters may not be able to hear them. Bear them up simply because of where they're at, or they just don't understand. But you got to work through it in order to continue remaining.